UFO UAP disclosure. There is so much information out there that it is very hard to keep the true story straight. In fact, it's a near impossibility. There are so many players with all varying agendas. What needs to be understood about the insanity of the UFO UAP disclosure is that it is wild and kooky for a reason. Not because all of what out there is true, quite the opposite. Most of what out there is hilariously false. That reason is because those who are in the know need it to be confusing or kooky. They needed it to be this way so that people wouldn't take it seriously or were led down a path of irrelevance. It has begun to unravel though, as more and more people are taking the UFO UAP disclosure more seriously. The government has to react to the fact that more and more people are taking an interest in a topic that used to be on just the social fringes. That is the real reason why they are coming out with this disclosure, not any other reason. If people were still relatively uninterested in this topic and it was still on the social fringes, they wouldn't even bother with this disclosure. Honestly, I feel like it has such an obvious "the government is lying to you" trope that I don't know how anyone can take what they're saying seriously. To me, it's kind of an obvious puppet show. Especially if you have been as intricately invested in looking into all the different varying UFO communities like I have since I was 16 years old. To give a little bit of a personal background to myself, of why I'm even talking about this topic. From a very young age, I have been abnormally interested in top secret government topics. That was stemmed from the fact that my grandfather was a nuclear weapons specialist and he was involved with some top secret stuff within the military back in the 60s. This of course interested me when I was a child, and I asked my grandmother as much as I possibly could about what he did while he was there. To my dismay, she didn't really know much. Makes sense, she wasn't the one that was there. And the stuff that she did know, she had very little information about, because she could only tell me what my grandfather told her. Two things I don't mind talking about that stuck out to me, because they're relatively stuff that have been brought up before, is that once he told her that if you knew what the government was doing, he was very specific with his language, you would be terrified. And he made it quite clear that he wasn't talking about the nukes. And then the other one that he brought up, that I don't mind talking about, there's other stuff that he talked about to my grandmother, not too much more, but it hasn't really been talked about in the conspiracy theory circles, so I don't really feel comfortable talking about it. But the final one is the DUMBs, D-U-M-B-S, deep underground military bases. Those are 100% real. I don't know why that was ever even a conspiracy theory. And they are connected. These little tidbits of information kind of planted a seed in a young mind that has kind of stuck with me ever since. It's kind of what led me down this UFO UAP rabbit hole, and it is a rabbit hole. I jumped headlong into this phenomena due to the fact that it actually is quite interesting. There's a lot of kookiness, but there's an interesting aspect to it as well. So what have I found over the last 13 years while investigating this topic in varying UFO UAP communities? The UFO and UAP communities is absolutely chocked full of clinically insane people. Charlatans, kooks, fame seekers, and weird esoteric mumbo jumbo. Absolute nonsense. This is the norm within that community. It is not the fringes of that community. You have groups that claim to be channeling beings from varying political entities, though the bulk of them seem to be channeling from a political entity that refers to themselves as the Galactic Federation of Light. These channelers are where a lot of the clinically insane and esoteric weird mumbo-jumbo come into play. That is by no means all of them, as a couple of charlatans are in there too. And then there is also what I perceive as genuinely good people with well-meaning intentions. The veracity, though, of these claimed channelings is dubious at best because of the fact that they typically contradict each other, and this happens even within the communities that claim to be channeling from the same political entities. They will conflict with each other all the time. When there are people that seem to actually be providing something of genuine input and genuine information, that tends to be few and far in between. And all too often you end up not hearing from them again, they get harassed into silence, or they end up dead. Interesting. I'm going to be showing you several videos that I personally have taken on my phone, so not the best camera, not gonna lie. But I'm also going to include videos of a plane, a satellite, and a helicopter. Why am I going to include these videos? I'm going to show them right after I'm done talking here. The main reason why I'm going to show those 3 videos is so that you can take those and reference them to my UFO/UAP videos that I have, so that you can figure out for yourself if you think that it is a plane, a satellite, or a helicopter, or if you can come up with some other conclusion. I personally was not able to come up with any kind of real conclusion on some of these, what they were. I hope these videos help with the veracity of my other videos, as it will help you to, like I said, try to cross-reference my videos. And it was important that I took those videos of the satellite, the helicopter, and the plane on the same device that I took the other videos on, for the very reason that, well, you know what a plane, a satellite, and a helicopter look like on my phone. So then you can compare it. So now that I gave you a brief summary of my findings, I'm going to go over some personal experiences with UFO and UAP. When I was 19 years old, I found out about a guy, and I'm sure most of you who watch this video will know who I'm talking about, by the name of Dr. Stephen Greer. he's the one who introduced me to the aspect of CE5 protocol. Of course, when I first heard it, I felt like it was complete rubbish and you can't actually contact ET or whatever. Although the main reason why I was more willing to try it was mainly due to the fact that it wasn't like channeling, which in my opinion is a quasi-possession. That's not what CE5 is. CE5 is just initiated contact. So I was far more willing to try that one, at least give it a fair shake. So I tried this protocol, and I did it exactly like Dr. Stephen Greer said to do it. And I did it for like an hour. A whole hour. And to be totally honest, I was starting to get frustrated. I was starting to get annoyed. I figured, man, I've just wasted an hour of my life trying to contact ET. But just as I was about to give up, I felt a ping. For lack of a better word, it felt like a ping on the middle part of my forehead. And then it felt like ripples, kind of like you would see ripples if you dropped a pebble into water and then you saw the ripples. It felt like ripples of coolness going down my body. And then after that, it felt like a pulsating scanning feeling that was going in and out like this and down my body. It felt weird. And once those feelings had subsided, I heard a deep guttural voice ask me if I wanted to know more. I'm going to be totally honest, that scared the pee-waddling out of me. I popped my eyes open and I literally yelled, "Nope! I don't wanna!" Which, as crazy as that is, the craziest aspect of that interaction is that while this being was talking, it was like it was projecting an image of itself into my brain. Almost like a headshot photo. It was at this point that I understood how telepathic communication could be a very fast form of communication. One way that I would describe what it feels like is a stamp, believe it or not. Much like when you stamp a piece of paper, as long as you're not rolling the stamp, that is, as long as you just plop it down, all of the letters, all of the numbers, all of the images of that stamp are being pressed onto that paper at the exact same time. So it's like that when the image is being put into your brain. So you understand everything about that image in an instant. I was so petrified by this experience that I refused to do CE5 for what would be almost 10 years. However, it would be about a year or a year and a half later, when I moved to Colorado, that I would have my next experience, although this one I did not initiate the contact. I was in Colorado for an internship program within the ministry, believe it or not. So a few days after seeing those orbs above the church, in the room that I slept in, there was a loud bang and a bright flash of light, and the room felt like it was literally shaking. Now, the room was set up where there was 4 bunk beds in the room. There was just me and my roommate who slept in there because there was 2 other bedrooms that all the other guys were sleeping in, but me and my roommate, we liked the bunk beds. I know. It felt like I had been tossed into the bed, like someone had grabbed my ankles and just tossed me into the bed. And I bounced off of the bed. actually smacked the wall a little bit, kind of hurt. But I was drenched. I was drenched in sweat. My heart rate was just through the roof. I have never, ever, before or since, felt my heart beating that fast, nor have I been that sweaty. I was so sweaty that it was like someone had dumped a bucket of water on me. It was terrifying. But, so, after being tossed into the bed, and a loud bang and the flash of light and the room shaking, my roommate stuck his head out from his bunk bed and looked up at me and he said, "What was that?" I just looked at him and I said, "I have no idea." I had to get a shower because I was just drenched. But the crazy thing is that once we got situated and woke up, and then the rest of the guys in the house woke up, we asked everybody else, "Did you hear that bang, and did you feel the house shaking?" None of them. None of them heard it. None of them felt the house shaking, even though the room that we were in was definitely shaking. And that bang was so loud. But no, none of them. None of them heard anything. None of them felt anything. I didn't expect them to see the flash of light because that was in the room. But I still somehow expected them to have felt the shaking and hear the loud bang. But no, they didn't. After that experience, and this might be a little bit of TMI, but I was sitting on the toilet, using it, and I have restless leg syndrome. So I kind of rub my legs every once in a while. And as I was rubbing my leg on my right side, I felt a bump. It was a very hard bump. And so when I felt it, my first thought was not what I'm going to show you. I thought it was maybe a ingrown hair, or, I know that's gross, but, or some kind of blackhead. And so I tried to mess with it. Nothing was happening. So I eventually took a needle to try to lance it. Again, I know that's gross, but I tried to do that. And what freaked me out is that when I kept trying to lance it, it was hard as some kind of piece of metal or a piece of rock. And it was not lancing. So I figured out that it was not an ingrown hair. It was not a blackhead. I don't know what it is. I still don't really know what it is to this day. But it didn't show up until after that interaction. In fact, I'll show you a photo of the spot on my leg. After this, a couple months, everything seemed to simmer down, and I would only occasionally see something strange in the sky that I couldn't quite figure out what it was. That was until near the beginning of this year in April, when I saw something that it looked like it was dancing around in the sky. I saw this while I was coming from my mother's apartment heading towards my home. Now when I saw it driving, I just attributed that maybe just because of the movement of my vehicle, that it's because I have an astigmatism. So I just thought that maybe it looks like it was dancing around because I was in a moving car. None of the other stars were doing that, but you know. Again, that's not your first thought. Your first thought is not, oh, UAP or UFO. No, your first thought is, I don't know, not that. So I eventually got home. I pulled up into the driveway. I looked back over towards where I saw the dancing star. And then I noticed it was still moving. But this time I couldn't blame the movement of the car because I was sitting still in my driveway. So I took a video of it. With this video that I captured, I started to feel like maybe I should get back into CE5. I know I had not a great interaction the first time. Well, it wasn't terrible, it's just, it was something. So I started doing CE5 again. I even found out that one of my buddies had also done CE5 and had a similarly strong reaction that he had done CE5. So there were several times that I did a few CE5 meditation sessions with him. And I noticed something. I noticed that it seems to be amplified when you have more than one person doing it. Because it would take anywhere between 45 minutes to an hour for me to get some kind of reaction to CE5 meditation. But when I had him with me, it would decrease to anywhere between 25 to 40 minutes. So it made me wonder if there was an amplification aspect to it. And you know, it very well may have an amplification. Instead of one person doing the meditations, it's two, and well, that's literally more meditative energies. I don't know what to call that. So I'm going to show you a couple other videos. Stop there for a second. It's gotten to the point where I don't really have to do CE5 to see the UAPs. And I've begun to wonder if maybe I've caught their attention. I don't know. I was doing it almost every night. So yeah, that probably would have caught their attention. The next video I'm going to show you is a video from one of my CE5 sessions. The video is from a longer 11-minute video that, to be quite honest, the rest of the video doesn't really have anything in it, which is why I clipped it down to, it's, I believe, 56 seconds long. Yeah, I didn't want to do that to you. Make you sit through 11 minutes worth of a video and only 56 seconds of it actually have the craft in it. But nonetheless. So the UAP in that video did some interesting maneuvers. It did a 90-degree zigzag kind of movement when it came in to frame. Then it also kind of comes down, and then it kind of backtracks a little bit, and then it kind of slowly moves down, and then it moves very quickly down. So that right there is movements that you wouldn't see a satellite do, you wouldn't see a helicopter or a plane do, at least not in the way that it does in the video. And it's really as compelling as the first video I showed you. However, the main difference is that the difference between the first video and this video that I just showed you, there was an intention to communicate. So the next video, and I think this is the final video I'm going to show you, is another video where I had the intention of communication, where I was sitting out on my porch on November 6th, so actually pretty recently, and I had communicated that I wanted to see something flashy. Well, apparently they took what I said quite literal, which that's on me. I should have been a little more specific as to what I was wanting, because it was literally flashing. They literally started flashing at me, and you'll see that in this video It's something else. Now there's one more experience that I'm going to go over before I conclude this video, and that was a night that me and one of my friends, specifically the friend that I know that has also done CE5, and I haven't been naming these people for the very reason that I'm not entirely sure if they want to be connected to this, because this is a topic that is scrutinized, and in many aspects rightfully so. Because there's, like I said before, there's a lot of kooks, charlatans, probably clinically insane people who are involved with this community, and I understand the vitriol against a lot of, well, just not necessarily a lot of, but this topic in general. But, so, this friend of mine that has also done CE5, we were standing on my porch again. That's a common place for us to be, because that's where we like to do it. And we actually hadn't even started doing the CE5 quite yet. And we saw this craft, this multicolored craft, that was slowly moving. And it was going from one side to the other side of this big electrical pylon that's right outside of my house. And it was moving, and then it would hold, and then move, and then hold, and move, and then hold. Almost like it was playing a game of peekaboo with us, which is kind of funny, but probably not what's actually going on. It's just that's how it felt. However, this went on for several minutes. I wish I had recorded this. I should have recorded it. Why didn't I record this? I don't know. But while this was going on, over to my side, I noticed a flashing light, and I looked over there. That was definitely a satellite that was moving over. And as I was looking at it, in the back of my mind, that's where that seems to be, the little voice, it said just the word opposition. My friend and I, when I told him that I heard the word opposition when I was looking at that satellite moving across the sky, we both thought to ourselves, what does that mean? Why'd they say opposition? And then we looked back over to where that craft was, and it was gone. So we kind of summarized that opposition must have meant that that was an opposition forces against them going across the sky. At least it's the only thing that made sense to us, where that was concerned. Because it was there, and then the moment that went by, it said opposition, and then disappeared. So what was the point of this video? One, it was to establish some form of credibility as to why I'm even talking about this subject. Two, it is to initiate some concerns that I have about the way that this disclosure of the UFO topic is going. More specifically, it is the government aspect of it that I'm not too fond of, with how they're pretending like they don't know what it is they're dealing with, but at 100% they know what they're dealing with. They know what it is. They may not... No, they know what it is. And to me, that annoys me. I'm like, stop acting like you don't know what it is. You know what it is. You've been interacting with these things for decades. I find it very hard to believe that they have no idea what they're dealing with. But, so I also have concerns about what would be considered the other side of the disclosure aspect, such as UFO groups, like Dr. Stephen Greer. My biggest point against Dr. Greer is his insistence that the proof that the alien entities are not hostile towards us is the fact that we don't have alien overlords, or they have not physically invaded our planet. I mean no disrespect to him when I say this, but I think that's a little naive. And the main reason why I think that it's naive is because, one, we have no idea what the rule of law is out there. We don't really know what political entities are out there. Not really. It's not really well known. We have people who say they know, but almost no one has actually provided any evidence as to what political entities actually exist. And of course, because as with all things in the UFO community, there's also highly conflicting statements as to which political entities exist out there. But back to me talking about the naivete of thinking that just because they haven't physically invaded us, that means that their intentions are good, or that they're not hostile towards us. There are more than one ways to conquer a species. I'm sure of it. Why? Because manipulation is a form of conquering as well. And one of the things I would like to point out is that we should try to maintain our independence as long as possible, at least several decades after actual disclosure has happened, and we should not be quick to involve ourselves with any specific political entity, at least not until we have a real good understanding of who is out there, what their agenda is, so I'm not saying we should militarize our interactions with them. I'm fine with the idea of trading with them. I'm fine with us interacting with them. However, joining political entities, might want to hold off on that until we really have a real grasp on what's out there. I think that if there are entities that have nefarious goals, they might not achieve their goals through physical means, is all I'm getting at. They could manipulate us because, like I was pointing out, in comparison to them, we are simple. We could be easily manipulated. They have the technology to manipulate us. They do. We can't act like they don't have that capability. Concluding, I look forward to the disclosure, I really do. But I just hope that humanity as a whole will be wise about their interactions with them. I have in no way gone over everything I've experienced, nor have I shown every video that I have. If I did that, this video honestly would be god-awful long. And I tried to make this video as concise as possible, at least as an introductory. But yeah, you know, this is a topic that should be taken very seriously. I understand why it's not taken seriously. Because of all the nonsense that's out there. And there is a lot of nonsense out there. But ultimately, I would end with this. 1. CE5 is real. I have had experiences that have shown that to be true. Now, whether or not you believe it, that's another thing. 2, you don't really need the government to disclose things to you because CE5 is true, first point. So you literally could ask them. Of course, you want to be careful with that, and you should test all entities that you interact with. Do not just take everything they say up front, at face value. Always test everything they say. And you can do that respectfully, you can do that in a nice way. You don't have, I'm not saying be combative with them. And honestly, I feel like if they're actually good entities, if they actually are good entities, that they should be okay with that. So far, what little interactions I've had, they seem to be okay with that. So, if you choose to do CE5, be careful. Don't be afraid, but be aware that you are interacting with an actual entity and you don't really know their intentions with you. And that's just something to consider. But other than that, that's my main concern. That I don't think that the disclosure is being done in a even remotely close to honest way. And I would really like to emphasize that I think the only real way that we will honestly get an answer is if we ourselves interact with them. And we as a collective explain what experiences we had, or even collectively tell each other things they've told us so that we can cross-reference what these entities are saying. I think it should be done in that way so that it can be done in a much more scientific way, a much more objective way. Ultimately, that's my long-term goal. That's what I want, is I want more of us to do this so that we can, as a collective, figure out what's going on out there. Maybe, possibly. But also, the more we learn, the more the government's going to have to be truthful about things. We would have to force their hands, because at this rate, if we just wait for them to tell us what they think is, or what they want us to think is out there, all we're going to get is a bunch of lies. They've been lying for decades. Don't think they're going to just stop. We have to force them to be honest. We cannot expect them to just be forthright and be honest. But that's where I'm going to end the video. Sorry if I bored you. But in the end, you have a good night.